We have reached the final countdown, y'all. Today I am making the third to last piece in my capsule wardrobe. A wrap top with a flutter sleeve. Now, I've never successfully made a wrap top or dress before. I've tried and they've all come out kind of clunky. So today, before I got up, this afternoon, I looked on my phone for some wrap top patterns and I actually found a wrap top tutorial with a half flutter sleeve that should give me the same silhouette that I'm going for with less fabric than my original design. But the problem with this pattern is I have never been the all in a one size fits all, and this pattern only comes in one size. So I'm going to have to heavily modify it to fit my body, which is cool. That's what I like doing. That's why I make my own clothing. But when you modify a geometric pattern like this one with that circle for the flutters, it can undermine the structural integrity of the pattern itself and actually make it so the garment doesn't fit at all. So there's a little bit of risk in this pattern and I might have to do some more tweaking to get it to fit me. But I like taking risks with sewing and crafting, so I'm gonna just jump right into altering this pattern. So I cut up a few plastic bags into a rather large sheet of pattern paper to work with. I freehand cut a notch in one side for the neckline and slung the whole thing over my dress form. I lined up the long edge around the neckline with the front and back and pinned out towards the side seam. I traced a center seam down the back side and also along the waistline to the side seam. Drew a diagonal line from the neckline down to where I want the wrap to actually wrap on the waistline. I made the front a little bit looser just so I have more ease to work with. This is gonna crinkle a bit, but this side seam on the front lines up with the side seam on the back. And I'm going to use the rest of this to make that flutter shape. I removed the pattern from my dress form, folded it in half, and drafted this part flat. And if it worked out, this should be about a half circle. Well, this more or less looks like the wrap pattern from the tutorial. It is the same height, it's about 90 centimeters, but it is wider. The one from the tutorial was about 45 wide, and this kind of goes off the page, which stops at like 60. So this is definitely wider than the tutorial. I've also shortened the waist a bit because I'm petite. I have a very short waist and I wanted to give as much into the room of the sleeve as possible. And I also have a little bit of an angle along the front because I have a much larger bust than the girl from the tutorial. So hopefully that is a full bust adjustment in there. But I think I need to make a mock-up before making anything out of my final fabric. I'm gonna use this bed sheet because I already made a skirt out of half of it and I think it would be nice to have a top to go with that skirt. So if it works out, I'll have a matching set. I should have pinned it towards this side that was already cut. That way I can use that edge for a ruffle. So I'm gonna take this off and redo it. definitely the right shape. I ended up sewing the two sides just slightly differently. One sews up into the armpit and one leaves a gap at the top of the seam. I think the one that leaves the gap at the top of the seam will make it a little bit easier to finish the final sleeve. So I'm actually unpicking both seams so I can redo both seams with about a 1/2 inch of room at the top of the seam to give myself more room to work with. That's the chair creaking, not me. Now I can pin a shoelace to the front and a shoelace to the side and try it on. I think this will work. I'm happy with where the wrap itself sits. It sits right at my natural waistline. I do think I could sew up this side seam a bit higher into the armpit and then maybe make the sleeve a bit shorter. I think that is an option I would have. Obviously not going to do that with my mock-up this way, but I might do that on my final pattern. Although these are really nice and dramatic sleeves, so I might just leave it. You know what, while I have this here, I'm just gonna pin a few darts underneath the bust and then dart both sides so it looks nice and even. It's the 5th of July, so my neighbors are still shooting off fireworks in the middle of the day. I'm gonna go quickly sew these darts in and get back to you. And I always leave a little space at the top of my darts so they don't have a pokey point. I think that looks a little better. Now I have a nice snug waistline that curves around me properly. The original did not have any darts in it, at least from what I could see in the video. So this is like, I think if you need a full bust adjustment, make sure you add the darts to get that nice fitted look. So I also checked this without the bulk of that standing collar in the way, and I think this works without a shirt as well. So that was just something I wanted to check and see if it works both ways, and I think it does. And I totally screwed up serging this ruffle onto the wrap because I had to like stitch rip and backtrack for over an hour, and it was a painful mess. But the worst part was slicing a hole in the back of my wrap with my serger knife. I ended up binding the slice with my buttonholer foot and then jiggered a patch over the top of it in the same part of the print and painstakingly sewed that on with a ladder stitch, and it looks pretty decent. I realistically don't think you'll be able to tell from far away that there's a patch right here. So I think I did a pretty good job with that. But that alone took like an hour to do. And now that I have successfully managed to sew this ruffle onto the bottom of the wrap, it's finally time to do the binding. I'm not using bias tape because I don't have enough fabric for that. I pinned the raw edge of my binding to my neckline right sides together, leaving about a ½ inch of fabric at the bottom. Then I repeated that step along the edges of the sleeves, making sure I had enough room at the end of the binding to pinch it together. And I sewed that on with my sewing machine because I just didn't want to mess with my serger after all the mistakes I made earlier. And I finally couldn't put off using my iron any longer despite the July heat wave, and it turned all of my binding to the inside. And I shorten the amount that I roll over the curves so they lay flatter. I tucked in all of my little ends and pinned the binding in place. Then I ran a line of stitching all the way around the edge to hold it in place. And do I want to wrap it left over right or right over left? That's a big question. And I'm just gonna match the ties that I already made for this matching skirt. I simply cut my fabric about 1 inch wide, pressed it in half, and then serged it. And I made 6 ties altogether for 3 sets. I also made a tie for another upcycling project that I've been working on. Just figured I'd get them both out of the way at the same time. I pinned one strap to the inside of the waistband under the armpit. I pinned a strap to the waistband on each side of the neckline. And then I pinned a strap to the outside of the other armpit. I'm gonna work that into the seam when I do my final version, but that's just the way it ended up in the mock-up. And then I tacked the last 2 up near the neckline just as an extra accessory piece. And the strap order is terribly important in a wrap dress. So that one on the inside of the waistband is going to connect to the tie on the waistband. This holds the left side down. And then you wrap the right side over and tie this to the tie. Can I not even grab it? On the outside. I think my mock-up's done. I'm gonna go sew these on. Probably off camera because I'm tired and it's hot in here. And I did a lot today even though I didn't do a lot. You know how those days go. But when I came in here today, Cujo decided he was gonna eat my pattern. So I'm gonna have to like retrace it or fix it or patch it or something anyway. And I might sound a little melancholy today. I do really love this. I'm just exhausted. So don't take my low-key mood as any sign of how much I like this, because I actually do really like this and I'm very happy with the way it came out, and I'm going to be wearing it with or without the matching skirt. What are you doing? But I love you. you so much. Ta-da! This robe is an upcycling project. I ordered a pair of pajamas online and the pants didn't fit, so I ripped them up and sewed them back together and made this. I thought the print was too pretty not to do anything else with, but also I really wanted some sort of like silky satin robe, so this satisfies that need while also not wasting money on that pajama set that didn't fit. I've been kind of scatterbrained with my projects this month because spending like a month embroidering really just like changed my creative juices, and now they're just like flooding out in every direction all at once. I also made a crochet blanket for Christmas in July, perfect timing. I've also made progress on crocheting lace for this dress I made last year. And honestly, I don't know if I like it or not, but I also didn't really like the dress I made, and it does make it look more finished. So this is just a long-term project that, you know, sometimes you make something and there's really nothing you can do to fix it to make it you like it, and I think this dress just might be one of those. And now I'm gonna finish the project for this video because I gotta get back to that one. Let's go. Mock-up done. Due to Cujo's hell-bent destruction of my pattern, I retraced it onto a new pattern sheet before making my alterations. I followed the original side seam lines on my pattern to raise the armpit about 3 inches. I also shortened the sleeve by about 3 to 4 inches. I shortened the front panel by about 1 inch. I marked a 1-inch dart on the back, and then I also marked a dart on the front and matched that with the dart in my mock-up. And then I cut out my new pattern. The only reservation I have is I might want to add some extra width into the side seam under the armpit, because I don't know if making it so much shorter is going to alter how the sleeve fits and ease. So I added just a little extra to the front because the angle was weird. And I'm gonna cross my fingers, hope this works. Then I ironed my purple fabric, which is the main fabric I wanted to use for this wrap shirt design. This very thin, gauzy purple fabric is one that I inherited from my aunt's fabric stash, and I'm a little bit nervous to work with this print because I don't normally work with a small print like these little flowers. But I'm hoping it'll turn out nice. heard people say that you have to cut on the bias if you want nice thin straps, but these are cut on the straight grain, and as long as you have the right size strap turner, get yourself a set of strap turners. You can maybe even make one at home if you have a straw and a stick. These came out just fine. I have to say, after having sewn this twice, the armpits really suck on this pattern to sew. And there's just really no good way to do it. And just like on my mock-up, I did do an extra line of stitching on the armpit just to reinforce it. I do have to say, despite the trouble with the armpits, this is actually a fairly simple and quick project to make. I actually managed to sew this in 2 days, completely, start to finish. But this is done, so let's go try it on. project, if I do say so myself. And I do. I achieved the original design I set out to make. I think setting the pleats towards the back is what like kind of makes this look like a hospital gown, but also it is like a little more flattering in the front where it doesn't have as much of that ruffle as the mock-up does. So I'm kind of torn on that design element, but I do love the back on this. But I really like wearing it over a dress, so I think I'm probably going to wear this to work a lot in the summer, just to have something kind of breezy when it's hot outside, like it is today. Hot inside. I don't recommend making the straps this long. Mine are like 3 feet long. And as much as I love having dangly straps, they don't need to be that long. You make them like 1.5 feet, 2 feet at the max. I think 3 is a bit excessive. I do recommend adding the peplum if you want to go follow the original tutorial. I'll put a link down in the description below if you're interested in. Overall, I do recommend this pattern. I think it was very easy and simple. The only thing I didn't like is that weird construction in the armpit that's just very not intuitive and not easy to do. But other than that, I recommend the pattern. I also feel like my capsule wardrobe's finally coming together. Like, having all of these clothes in one spot, being able to try them all on, I feel like I'm almost there. And I am almost there. I only have 2 pieces left. So if you guys aren't already subscribed to my channel, meow, yes, you should come subscribe to our channel. Oh, buddy. Or if you followed the original tutorial and have any suggestions or comments, you can put them down here too. Oh, I'm making myself dizzy. Okay, bye everyone. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching my video.